It's the nightmare position on a nightmare bye week. Tight end rankings for week 8. Let's get into it. I'm Tom Strachan. Let's go. At the top, it is only 2. Obviously, no Trey McBride, no Brock Bowers, whole host of players on bye weeks. But Tucker Kraft, Tyler Warren, 2 really reliable options for fantasy this year. Tucker Kraft had a season high 35% target share against the Cardinals. We said last week that was a great matchup for him. Well, this is another great matchup for him. The Steelers have been rancid on defense this year, and they have been awful against the tight end position. We ranked 21st against the pass in EPA allowed per dropback, and they also have allowed the third most adjusted fantasy points to the tight end position. All kinds of just confidence when it comes to Tucker Kraft this week. He is easily the best yards after the catch tight end in the league right now. Tyler Warren has 3 games where he has been over 16 PPR points now. He has been over 14 points in all but 2 games. He is such a reliable option already. We are just not used to seeing this when it comes to the tight end position. It's so nice to have, and the Colts are 14-point favorites at home against the Titans. So, yeah, very much back in on Tyler Warren for this week. There should be no need to really worry. Even though the Titans haven't allowed much in the way of fantasy point production to the tight end position, they've allowed the 7th fewest points. You look at what the Titans' defense is, and they rank 27th. They just put L'Jarius Sneed on IR, and there should be no reason to talk yourself out of this one. Do you want to win some? Go and check out the running back video when you finish this one. Literally watch it for 2 minutes and you will get details of the giveaway. In the A tier, the tight end 1 overall in fantasy points per game. Jake Ferguson, Dallas Goedert, Dalton Kincaid, and George Kittle rounding things out. Jake Ferguson has been utterly immense. 17.2 points per game, which is a full point more than anybody else. And his 6 touchdowns that he's got this season are the most he's ever scored in the season. Like, this is a guy who hasn't been an elite touchdown merchant over the years, but he had 7 career touchdowns before this, and now he's added 6. And if I had him in Dynasty, I'd definitely be worried that year to year this production isn't going to stick. But right now, you can lean into it and trust it. Ferguson is playing in Denver. This game has a 51-point over-under. And of course, I have to mention how good the Denver defense is. They rank number 4 in pass defense EPA per dropback. And they haven't given up huge amounts to the tight end position, but they've given up a bit more there than they have to the wide receiver. Wide receiver, they've given the 2nd fewest fantasy points. Tight ends, they've given up the 12th fewest. So perhaps that is a little chink in their armor. And we saw last week, the volume is only going to 3 places in Dallas. It's going to CeeDee Lamb, George Pickens, and then Jake Ferguson, who had a 23% target share. I'm okay trusting that. Dalton Kincaid, obviously, we didn't see him play for the Bills before the bye week, so there's a slight air of, is he going to be okay? Is he going to be fine? What's going on there? You don't tend to hear much during the bye week, but things seem to be trending okay, and he's playing against the Carolina Panthers in Carolina. This is the Bills' chance to kind of prove it. Can they beat a team with a winning record? Because they haven't so far. His target share so far this year, 8%, 22%, 21%, 9%, and 19%. Plenty to like about Dalton Kincaid. I think that he is on the cusp of really becoming an easy start every week, because right now there is still reason to be a little bit concerned every now and again. But the Panthers, they've given up the 7th most adjusted fantasy points to the tight end position, and Dalton Kincaid here looks okay. George Kittle, I would like to have ranked him higher. Like, we ranked him higher last week, but this Houston defense, they are not a pushover. They have a number 1 defense in EPA allowed. They've not given up anything to the tight end position. They've given up the 5th fewest fantasy points. And George Kittle wasn't that involved last week. So it's a bit of a leap to say that he could magically be so this week. That game, 41-point over-under, little bit concerned about it in general. Into the B tier, and we still don't know whether Garrett Wilson is coming back, so Mason Taylor definitely gets a bump. It would have been so much nicer if Mason Taylor had that kind of explosive game that we wanted him to have without Garrett Wilson last week. And it wasn't to be. I mean, like, look, in the words of the Jets owner, it would have been nice if the quarterback could complete 1 pass. Obviously, Josh Reynolds, Arian Smith got more involved, but what we saw from Mason Taylor over the previous few weeks, his target share has been really impressive. Now, we're doing all this on not many passes, but if Tyrod's out there, that would be an arrow up. And Mason Taylor had target shares of 13%, 25%, 26%, 6%, and 12% over the last few weeks. That's enough to work with at the tight end position. And he gets an absolute cupcake of a matchup against the Bengals, who've allowed the most fantasy points to the tight end position. They had done that even before last week when they gave up like 100 touchdowns to Pittsburgh Steelers tight ends. They have been beaten up by tight ends all year long. And I think Mason Taylor gets into the end zone here. Now, Travis Kelce, we have to talk about the Rashi Rice factor. This week, they are going up against the Commanders. They're 13-point favorites in Kansas City. But Travis Kelce in games with Rashi Rice, it's absolutely the drop off is ridiculous. He averages only 8 fantasy points per game. His targets drop way down to 5. And we just see all that stuff over the middle of the field that Mahomes has been excellent at this year. Like he's almost got a perfect passer rating on throws 10 to 19 yards deep. It all just goes to Rashi Rice instead. So I think here against the Commanders, you're looking for Travis Kelce to get into the end zone. But if Marcus Mariota's playing instead of Jaden Daniels, then the Chiefs should be able to do what they want. Aronde Gadsden playing in Thursday Night Football. We've been talking about Aronde for a couple of weeks now. You go back to the offseason, and Matt, who came onto the channel, talked him up as one of his sleepers. Absolutely incredible call. Scored 12 PPR points, 29 PPR points these last 2 weeks. By the time you're watching this, you'll know how he did on Thursday Night Football. Rounding things out with Harold Fannin Jr. Now, of course, Harold Fannin has looked excellent. Could have been even better last week, but the Miami game, it was just miserable. It was so difficult to get really great fantasy production. But Fannin led the Browns in target share at 27%, also led them with a truly pathetic 36 receiving yards. There will be better days there. This week, they take the New England Patriots, who really are going to drive the game better. So I've got plenty of hope for Harold Fannin this week, particularly if David Njoku sits another week. Moving into the D tier, TJ Hawkinson, Cade Otton, Theo Johnston, and Colston Loveland. Like maybe this ranking of Colston Loveland is a little bit aggressive, but the Ravens, where they've given up points over the last few weeks, has been to the middle of the field consistently. Nate Wiggins on the outside has been pretty good. But if you can get in between those soft spots where Roquan Smith's been a little bit of a liability, then I think Colston Loveland can be okay. The Ravens probably are going to be a tougher defense than we've seen them be over the last few weeks, particularly against the Texans, where they were just diabolical. But Loveland, he's seen target shares of 10%, 10%, and 15% over his last 3 games. And Ryan Heath, Fantasy Points, pointed this out the other day, but Cole Kmet's not out-targeted Loveland since week 2. It really seems like things are just starting to trend up for Colston Loveland. Theo Johnson, I don't mind. I think he's an okay play, but he's very touchdown reliant. And then K. Dotton getting a little bit of an arrow up now that Mike Evans is ruled out for the year. Chris Godwin, obviously, not playing anytime soon as well. The Saints have been pretty good against the tight end position. They are, though, better against the run than they are against the pass. It just hasn't really been a situation where tight ends have gone off against them, but they do rank 25th against the pass, so maybe K. Dotton can get going here. Then down to Juwan Johnson taking on the Bucks, who have allowed the ninth most fantasy points to the tight end position, but Juwan Johnson has really dropped off in terms of production lately. Jonnu Smith taking on the Packers, who've allowed the second most fantasy points to the tight end position, but the Steelers, I mean, it's so unpredictable what they're going to do with their tight end room week to week. Dalton Schultz, perhaps he gets a little bit of a bump up with no Nico Collins. Noah Fant, I think, is probably a sneaky play, probably better for DFS or looking at prop lines, but Mike Gesicki's on IR. Joe Flacco has historically loved throwing to the tight end position. The Jets, they're middle of the pack when it comes to the tight end position. They rank 29th against the pass in general, though, so maybe Noah Fant can have an okay day here. And then Chigokonkwo barely holding on to his job ahead of Gunnar Helm, but if you need a streamer, Chigokonkwo should at least be in a high-volume pass game with the Titans, 14-point underdogs against the Colts on the road. Anyone else after that? I mean, it's a complete dart throw. But if you want our advice, you can hit the join button down below and join the Discord and get access to all our rankings, including our flex rankings. Truly appreciate you. Smash that like button.